Welcome to the Social Media Lawcast. I am your host, social media attorney Ethan Wall. Yes, that is a real thing. And here on the Social Media Lawcast, we talk about all things about social media and the law. But sometimes we get to interview influential people in the social media and financial services industry. And today, I have the pleasure of speaking with one of the coolest people in the credit union space, my good friend, Amy McGraw. Amy is the Vice President of Marketing and the Chief Experience Officer at Tropical Financial Credit Union, one of the largest credit unions in South Florida. And as I teased before, she's one of the freaking coolest people I know. Her phone is already ringing off the hook because you know that she is on the show. Amy, welcome. What's up?
Thanks, Ethan. I appreciate you having me. What's up? What is not up nowadays, right?
Oh my gosh, so much going on, and so much has gone on since you and I met. Do you remember actually the first time that you and I met?
I'm trying to remember the first time we met. I remember when I brought you to speak at one of our chapter events.
Mm-hmm.
But was that the first time we met? Oh, I know. That was Todd Templin connected us. That's right.
That's
I do
right.
remember that.
Our friend Todd Templin from Boardroom Communications.
Yep.
I still remember. So Todd's like, you got to meet my friend Amy. You guys are just going to hit it off. You're super cool. I think we met and we did the presentation at your office. And then I think you pulled some strings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you invited me to speak at the CUNA Marketing and Business Development Conference for two sessions on social media compliance for credit unions. And I'm like, great. I'm so excited. I'll be there. And I hung up the phone and I said, what the hell is compliance for social media for credit unions? And what you don't know is I literally bought a textbook on financial compliance, spent the next week teaching myself everything, and then walked in there like I knew what I was talking about. But lo and behold, 7 years later, we picked up a thing or two together.
Wow. I remember that national conference, the very first session was fairly well attended, but the second session was busting out the doors because the word got around that somebody who talks compliance was actually entertaining. So, so all of a sudden the house got packed, and it was really, really a good session too.
Well, I appreciate it. It's all thanks to you. And I'm sure they didn't show up for me. They heard that there were movie clips that were being played throughout the presentation. So that's what brought them in there. So that's how I broke into the financial compliance space. But people don't care about me. People are listening to today's episode because they want to know all about you. So how did you break into the credit union or financial services space in the first place?
I am a bar hire.
A bar hire, please tell me more.
Oh my goodness. Well, before I worked for credit unions, I actually was a live sports producer. I was a producer for the Detroit Pistons up in Michigan. And I was sort of in between jobs. I was supposed to go to the Fox affiliate, and I'd given my notice to the Detroit Pistons. And then the week before I was supposed to start at Fox, I went to go pick up my employee badge, and they went, "Oh, we had a hiring freeze and we didn't get your paperwork in the computer on time. Don't have a job for you after all." And it was right around Christmas. So my sister was in town, and so we went to the bar because what else are you going to do, right? My sister, who is let's say she enjoys her alcohol. Mm-hmm. I was the designated driver, so I remained sober and drank a lot of Diet Coke that day. Anyway, we were sitting there chatting, and this gentleman walks up and asked if either of us were married. Not kidding.
Okay, all right. This is getting spicy.
And my sister, who was spicy, she looks at me and she's like, "We can get free drinks." I'm like, "I'm not drinking, but cool." So we walk over to the table. They invite us over, and they had just come from their Christmas party. And this gentleman who approached us was clearly not the designated driver, if you know what I mean. And so we started chatting with them, and they turned out they worked for a mortgage company. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. And I started asking him some questions about the mortgage company and how they're promoting it, how they market it. And I said, "Boy, you are doing everything wrong." So I basically gave him a a 411 and basically everything they were doing wrong to market this mortgage company. It turns out the guy owned the company. So he's like, you need to come work for me. And I'm like, okay, got nothing else to do. And it turned out to be a mortgage company that was the mortgage department for credit unions that weren't big enough to have their own mortgage departments. So that's basically my first foray into to credit unions. I did that for several years and worked for 300 different client credit unions throughout 4 different states. And I got really tired of trying to create generic messages that could work in 300 different markets in the Midwest.
Right.
So I decided I really wanted to work for one credit union. I fell in love with credit unions at that point. I mean, I had no idea financial institutions could care so much about people. And one of the reasons is because they're not for profit. And
Sure.
when you have a not for profit model, all of a sudden the customer or the member becomes the number one thing. And
Mhm.
I said, that's something I could really put my heart and soul behind, and started working for a Detroit credit union by the name of Public Service Credit Union. And pretty much the rest is history. And in terms of coming down here, though,
Mhm.
I literally was just looking to update my resume. So I put in Vice President of Marketing Credit Unions, and up popped this job position for a credit union called Tropical Financial with
Hmm.
a palm tree in the logo. I'm sorry. If you're from Detroit, Michigan, and it's wintertime and you see a palm tree in a logo, you're like, I'm there. And,
First
and
ticket
seriously,
on the plane out of there down to South Florida.
and to this day, every year, right around my birthday, I get a call from my old CEO begging me to come back.
You
But
know what? And every year on your birthday, you have a very polite conversation that says, "Sorry, I'm staying right here in the sun."
I said, if you could figure out a way for me to work remotely, because I am never leaving my house ever again. I even told my husband, I'm feet first out of this one. This is my last house. It's the perfect house I've always wanted. My kids are all grown and out. We have 3 dogs, a 3-bedroom house, and a pool with a privacy fence. That's all this girl needs to be happy.
No, the only thing that he could possibly do to sweeten the deal some is to somehow throw in Michigan State football box season tickets. But you know what? We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to put that
Are you
on the
sure? Because I
record.
got all the stuff right back there.
Oh no, trust me. You had a big win versus Michigan. You are primed for a college football playoff this year. And as a
Ranked
group of
third in the
five,
search power rankings, my friend.
I'm just going to say I'm very happy that Michigan State is in there, and you deserve it without question. The fact that Cincinnati, as a group of 5 undefeated school, beating number 10 Notre Dame, being number 2 in the AP poll, and then being dropped to 6 is
Yeah.
just, but that's not what we're here to talk about, because we could talk about that
We
the
can talk about that
entire.
all day long.
Yes. Now, you and I can talk marketing all day long. We will talk some marketing, but you're not just the director of marketing, because people here are going to know, cool, all right, I know what director of marketing does, but you are also the chief experience officer at Tropical Financial. What the heck is a chief experience officer?
It's actually become more and more vital as we have gone more and more digital. Because credit unions, and it's interesting because credit unions actually have more chief experience officers than pretty much any other industry. And there's a reason for that. Because credit unions are built on the foundation of people helping people. That's who we are. Now, we're going more and more technology. That means you're taking the people out of it. So my job is to find ways to make things as personal as possible, and the feel that it is truly the people helping our own members who are people helping people. Get that feeling even though it's in a digital or technology type of a space.
And you've done this in some of the most coolest and unique ways possible. I'm just gonna start running down a list. I'm gonna say a word. All right, we're gonna play a game I've never played before.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw out a word, and you're gonna tell me what this means. So let's start with, when I think of financial space and I think of digital and I think of podcast. What are you guys doing with a podcast?
Well, ironically, we launched a new financial literacy or a financial education platform called Get Beyond Money.
Hmm.
And I love it because it really does sum up, money is very, very stressful. And what our whole job and role in life is to help our members get beyond that everyday stress of money so they can get back to what's important in their life. We launched that in September of 2019. Little did we know that we would launch something about 6 months prior to a world pandemic that would shut everybody down and really affect their financial health as well.
Mhm.
A physical health crisis leading to a financial health crisis. And that's what's happening right now. So we created the Get Beyond Money platform to basically help people get beyond money. Part of that was launching a podcast aimed at talking about everyday financial things that maybe some people they'd be embarrassed to talk about. That's the one thing we found out through a lot of research is people would rather talk about sex than money. They really would. Parents would rather talk to their kids about sex than money because it's so personal and can be embarrassing at times.
Mhm.
I mean, let's face it, nobody's given a book of how to do finances. It's something you have to learn along the way, and they're not teaching it in high school and they're not
Mhm.
teaching it in college. So you either learn it on your own or you learn it from your parents, but most parents aren't comfortable talking about it. So you can see this vicious cycle of most people are going to have problems with their finances.
Mhm.
So we did the podcast to sort of hit these issues head on, different financial problems and issues and ways to address them. I'll give you a perfect example. The way the whole podcast got started is I was sitting with our two podcast hosts, which at that point in time were doing videos for us,
Mhm.
Zoe and Kara. And the two of them started talking about Starbucks and how they had to have their Starbucks every single day. So I looked at them and I said, "How much is that?" And they're like, "I don't know, 5, 6, 7, $10 every day." And I'm like, huh. And you're wondering at the end of the week why you don't have any money. So what would happen
Mm.
if you guys made your own coffee every day? Just out of curiosity. And maybe do Starbucks once a week as a treat. Exactly. Mind blown. They actually started talking about it. And the way those two interacted and got the rest of the group who we just were talking about content at the time, I'm like, this is a podcast. Right now is a podcast. And that is how the Get Beyond Money podcast was born, about two individuals learning how to do money with each other and with other guests, pulling them in and learning how others, in fact, you were even a guest to talk about how you took your business, your law firm, and made it virtual so that you could do the other thing you loved, which was traveling. And you could still have a business, but yet be completely on the road. And that was such a unique story. So you want to talk about unique stories. I'm nothing compared to you, my friend.
Oh, no, no, no. We'll save that podcast for another day. But I do love what Kara and Zoe are doing with the Get Beyond Money podcast because they're tackling a subject matter that could be sensitive, but is doing it in such an inviting, intuitive, fun, welcome way. Where
Right.
when I listen to the podcast itself, I don't feel intimidated by it. I kind of want to get that lighthearted, real talk about kind of how this is affecting us in real life, and
Yeah.
then other people that they can kind of bring in and share their experiences with. So I think it connects the dot between technology and people and how you help people through technology. But it's not just
Absolutely.
the podcast, because you said they started doing videos. And I
Mhm.
remember walking into your office. It wasn't for the first time because I've been there before. But you know what? I'd come every couple of years to do a training or come say hi when I'm in South Florida. And I'm walking by the office, and you know those moments where you walk and you think you see something and you keep walking and you stop and double take and go back. And I'm like, is that a film studio with a green screen wall in your office? What was up with your in-house or really in-office recording studio?
Well, again, that was my background. I was a producer before I ever came into credit unions. So I had some production background experience. And at first, we were trying to do it with backdrops, and it never worked because of the lighting, and it just never worked. So I said, let's do a green screen. We could do it in here. We had professional lights hung from the ceiling so that we can have either our fluorescent lights or our television lights basically on. And that way we can have whatever background we want because we'll have it professionally edited and just stick in a background. So we could be on the beach or we can be in a car lot if we were talking about cars, or we could pretty much just put ourselves wherever. And it was going to save us a lot of money because as credit unions, not for profit, we don't have super deep pockets like the big guys or the big banks to be able to invest in studio time and professional producers and things like that. We kind of had to just do it on our own. So I had the experience and the expertise. So I said, why not? We got, nowadays, I remember when I was in TV to get, we were chip cameras that would be on videotape. There's no such thing as digital. I remember the very first digital studio, everything had to be transferred from tape to digital. And there were
Oh,
these huge towers and you'd have to do it in real time. And oh my God.
totally. I remember the old analog editing systems with the
Yes,
wheels when you had to use a wheel to click through
exactly.
the 30 frames, for sure.
Yes, and if you went to go put in a countdown and you accidentally hit assemble rather than just the video and it cut the track, you had to start completely over. Unlike
Wow.
digital where you can just drag and drop and everything else.
Mhm.
So anyway, it was nowadays it's very easy. You can get these really nice high definition cameras for a few $1,000s, not $50,000.
Mhm.
So it really the whole studio probably cost us less than 10 grand to completely set up.
Unbelievable. And just think about the number of times that you would have to rent a recording studio for a half day or for a day, 3 or 4 times that you shot the thing, you've already eaten up your entire budget and now you have it. So
Yeah.
super, super, not only super intuitive, super smart. Now I could tell people are listening and they're like, man, you're right. Amy is cool. This stuff is cool, but you know what? We're just getting started because I've got two more word associations, and this one's going to be a throwback. What do you think about when I say the League?
The League.
The League of
Oh,
Extraordinary.
the hero. Yes. The League of Financial. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten the name of it now. It's been so
Oh
many
my goodness!
years.
You know what? I'm just gonna.
Yeah, that was our hero contest.
That's
And do
right.
you know, Ethan, that our very first hero, Elliot Scholes,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a police officer, Miami-Dade. And what he did is every single once a month he had something called Elliot and Friends that he would go to the Ronald McDonald House connected to Jackson Hospital, and he
Mm-hmm.
would cook a meal for the families that were there. And he did it for over a decade. Now, when you think of somebody who does something like that, usually it's because they have a connection to it. But he didn't. He had the heart connection to it. And then that's not all that man did, though. The other thing he did was he started adopting and fostering German Shepherds,
That's right.
literally found them on the street, paid out of his own pocket vet bills, and would then find homes. And not just find homes like put an ad in the paper. Oh, no, no, no. He made sure that he would go to the home and made sure that and check in with that animal and that owner to make sure the animal was being taken care of. Again, you'd think maybe, oh, yeah, he was a canine officer, right? No, he wasn't. He just loved animals. In fact, I have a pit bull that he found wandering the streets of Miami, really beat up and half starved as about a 6 month old puppy. And I adopted that dog, and he just turned 6 years old a few
Is
days
this
ago.
Sparty?
And Sparty, yes. And Sparty also got a happy birthday message from Elliot because he still keeps in touch to this day. And that to me is a real hometown hero. Even when we gave that man his check, we gave him a check for himself and a check for the Ronald McDonald House. That's where he had the funds go to. He took the check to himself and it all went to the dogs. So,
Hmm.
literally to the dogs.
Oh,
That's the kind of guy he was. And his sergeant came and didn't even know he did these things on the side. That is a true hero, not someone who boisterously yells, look at me, look at me, look at me. Someone who quietly goes about his everyday business and makes a difference in people's lives every single day. And that was such an honor to be able to elevate him for a moment in time because he deserved it.
totally. He is the poster child for the League of Financial Goodness.
Goodness, that's what,
That's what it
goodness
was.
gracious. How
I
did I
know.
forget
I
that?
don't know. We just, man, you know what? I'm getting old. It ain't you. It's me. It's
No,
me.
believe me, it's me.
But I love this. I love this for I really loved being a part of this for a few reasons, which was first, it was all about highlighting helping people. And it wasn't how here specifically. The credit union helps people, but it's how people in the community help make the community better. So it's highlighting them. And
Right.
then at the same time, it was also a competition or a contest of
Hmm.
sorts that many credit unions were shying away from because they're like, whoa, there's gaming laws, sweepstakes, contests, lotteries. How do we handle the voting and the judging criteria? How do we navigate all this? And when it came time to do it, your philosophy was not, oh no, and even your in-house compliance legal team wasn't saying, oh no, this is a competition or a contest, stay away. It's, okay, this is a contest that has its own laws. How can we bring this to life? How can we do this in a way that is both social, highlighting people in the community, doing good, using digital to be of benefit, and also doing it in a legal way? And the amount of submissions. I remember being a judge, I think, and we sat in the conference room and went through like 250 submissions, maybe even
Yeah.
more because there's so many duplicates. But that was a blast. But I'm saving the best for last. And that is, what do you think about when I say ball pit?
I think of brainstorming.
How brainstorming ball pit? How so?
Yes, because I found, and actually I would love to take credit for that, but I did a tour of Zappos,
Mhm.
and their HR department had a huge ball pit. And they would go in there when they had employees that were not getting along so well. And I thought, oh my God, we could really use this. So we created it. We got one of those little backyards blow up pools, and we got tons of balls. Again, didn't cost us a whole lot. We actually split the cost amongst ourselves, so the credit union didn't have to pay for it. And we had it over 2 years, and it was one of the best investments we made, not only for the marketing department. Other departments, our lending department would come and go, can we use the ball pit? And they would get in there with their pads of paper. And when they would start, bouncing ideas off of each other, and if they started getting like heated, like I don't agree with you and I don't agree with you, they would just start whipping balls at each other.
Naturally.
It was hysterical. And they were soft. They didn't hurt or anything, but it was a way that you could let off steam. It was playful. And, I'm sorry, even as adults, we need to tap into our playful. We are
Mhm.
still have that within us. And when we tap into it, we find we can open up our minds so much more so than sitting around a boardroom table with pads of paper and trying to hash something out. You do
Mhm.
that in a ball pit, and you're going to have a whole different outcome. We ended up having to donate it because one of our employees is a little OCD, and she started freaking out when some of the employees would bring their children with runny
Mm.
noses to jump in the ball pit, and she's like bacteria, bacteria, and she started spraying it with Lysol, and she's like, okay, I think we've hit the limit on this, because she didn't want to get in it anymore. So we ended up cleaning it up and donating it to a child care center. So
You
it still
know,
is
you know,
being
your
used.
idea it has run its course when it's time for people to sign a waiver and release of liability to enter the credit union brainstorm ball pit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think I could say I know for a fact that there aren't anybody else out there from the credit union space that has their own ball pit. But what a lot of credit unions do have right now, and what they didn't have when we first started talking, was a social media presence.
Mhm.
Tell me about the importance of social media for credit unions and how you've seen social media used by credit unions evolve over time.
Yeah, I think that when credit unions and really all businesses, when they first started, getting into this idea of social media, they knew that's where people were. But I think this idea of engagement sort of escaped them. Like they thought, okay, I can jump into a conversation and just start selling my product, and that is not what social media is about. Social media is an exchange of ideas, and each platform has its own unique way of exchanging its ideas amongst each other. And it's really important that if you're going to insert yourself in that you do it in a way that's respectful of the platform and of the people using that platform. And we use it primarily for education and engaging with people to talk about different forms of financial education, financial ideas, how to save people money, what, some do's and don'ts and scam alerts and things like that. That is a way to use social media effectively. And again, even with LinkedIn, which is professionals with professionals, it is B2B to a degree, but it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that people are on there to push sales at each other. It still is an exchange of ideas, and you need to be able to respect that platform and use it the way it's created. If you try to push, think about the way marketing was. The old way of marketing, it's push, push, push.
Mhm.
Yell from a billboard, yell from a TV ad, yell on the radio, yell in flyers. And people were tired of being yelled at, and they were tired of being told how to think, and so they took control of the conversation with social media. And you have to respect that. You
Mhm.
don't control it, they control it. So involve yourself, yes, but engage with them on their terms, on their way of wanting to engage. When you do that, then you start getting that back and forth conversation, in a way that actually ends up getting you sales, because you establish that trust. And we have a saying here. This is for Tropical Financial. Everything here is built on the foundation of one thing, and that's educate first, sell second. When you educate, then when you do the sales part of it, you know that you're selling something. And I even hate using the word selling because it really isn't even selling.
Sure.
You're helping them get the right financial product that they're ready for at the right time. Nobody wants to push a credit card on somebody who's so overextended they're about to go bankrupt. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you have to find ways to help them get their credit score up and the debt load down. And there are ways to do that to help somebody then later on, when they're in that good position and they're ready for a car or that big one, the house, they're going to know who to go to, who was there to help them at a time when they needed the help. And that's what we use social media for, as well as all of our content and education, is to fulfill our mission of educate first, to ensure that's the right product at the right time, then sell.
I love it. The philosophy is just like when you would create a human relationship, like in real life. Like, it's not like, hey, I want to sell you on being my friend. I want to engage with you. I want to learn more about you. And if there's a way that I can help you along the way, awesome. You don't go through it with, what can I get out of this friendship? Because people are going to see
Right.
through that. And I think they
Right.
see through it in marketing as well. And I think that's, I'm not saying don't advertise on social media. But if all you're doing is advertising on social media, then you're the same person, same company that was screaming off the top of the billboards saying buy, 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 as opposed to listening and engaging and talking with people. And you even
Right.
mentioned like B2B platform on LinkedIn. While there's businesses there, there's no robot behind the computer. There's real people who are engaging on behalf of those businesses and being able to educate them about the opportunities that might be available for them, or how to help them, or how to protect them from risks, helps to establish trust, just like when you are dealing with a personal interaction as well. So I think taking that approach is great. And the more that you educate, the more that you help, and the more that you engage on social media, the more that you're going to get back in return. Probably just like in the ball pit, the more that you're engaging back and forth with people, listening, sharing ideas, volleying balls back and forth in a fun way to kind of like testing out, it's going to be fun and you're going to get the most out of it. But just like being in a ball pit, being on social media is not without risks.
Right.
Someone could slip and fall on the ball. Someone's kid could sneeze all over the ball. It gets tossed around. Everybody gets sick. So how do you how do you use social media in a way that's both social and engaging, but also that's safe, that helps to guard against risks, so that the credit union, your members, or even people out there who are receiving the information from you and are receiving that help don't get harmed in a way or don't get put at risk?
That's a really, really good question, especially for financial services. There are a lot of laws, especially around loans. Loans are a big one, to ensure that the protected classes are not being damaged. And we actually had that happen with us. Almost happen. Thanks to you, it didn't happen. But one of the things I was going to even say when you were talking about advertising on social media, and we do advertise too. We don't, it's not purely content. We do some ads as well, but our ads, we try very hard to make sure our ads are being targeted to those who are looking for those particular products at the time they're looking for them. So we're not just, spray and pray kind of thing, where just throw everything at the wall, spaghetti, and hope and pray something sticks. That also does not give your brand a very good name either. So we try very hard to target. And in so doing, we use artificial intelligence and we use modeling. Well, in models are only as good as what you feed into it. So if you feed into it protected class information like age and income and marital status, you know what's going to happen? The model's going to start spitting out and narrowing down who can really get those loans. And all of a sudden, you begin to start carving out that protected class, not on purpose.
Right.
The models only do what you put in. So what we did is we had to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We got to be very, very careful about this. So we started to remodel with taking all those elements out. But even then, we were not placing ads. We were only seeing where they were taking us and
Mhm.
sampling the audiences to make sure that those protected classes were indeed being included in the target. And only then, once we saw after several iterations, and we're talking 6 months worth of iterations of models, were we then comfortable to go ahead and start using those models again, to put our ads out there in a targeted kind of way. So you have to be, it's not just saying, oh, let's use artificial intelligence and modeling. You've got to be, and especially with financial services, you have to be smart about it to ensure that the laws are still being followed. And I always tell my team this too, when we're out there doing anything on social media, whether it's an ad or a post, you have to be so careful with contests and with
Mhm.
rates, because social media can last forever and you can have a special rate that can show up in your timeline from a year ago. And if
Sure.
you don't have something in that same ad saying when that ad is for, how long that rate is going to be good for, the disclosure has to be right there. Then somebody can go, look, it's on your page. Granted, I had to scroll down a year and a half, but it's still there.
Sure.
So that was something actually that I am incredibly grateful that we had your help with, because honestly, that was when we were out of our element, understanding the marriage between the two, the laws of compliance around financial services, specifically loans, and social media. Even the contests and sweepstakes, how that same sort of thing, we can have a contest from 5 years ago. It'll be there. You scroll down far enough, you can find it. So
Mhm.
we had to make sure that the disclaimer of what the dates were and everything were on that very first page, so people knew what it was, when it was over.
For sure. And I love that approach because that approach is so consistent even with the League of Financial Goodness and those contests, which is, some people, some credit unions that we talk to are just afraid to get into the water because there are risks, as opposed to and some others on the other hand just want to dive right into the water and not be like, how deep is this? Are there sharks? Like, what do I need to be able to worry about? And so I think, what you do and what Tropical Financial Credit Union does, which I think is so exciting, is to say we've got big ideas and we want to bring these ideas to life. But before we bring them to life, let's figure out how are we going to bring them to life in a way that's going to help us help our members and of course accomplish our own goals and objectives, because when we're helping our members, we're also helping our membership in the same exact way by growing the credit union. But how do we avoid risk to get everybody else that could get anybody else in trouble, and figure those things out at the outset, and then figure out how to use strategies like targeted marketing, advertising, social media ads, giveaways, podcast, etc. It's basically, instead of shoot first, ask questions later, you got to take a look out into the future and see what the opportunities are and what the risks are, figure out how to manage them, and then do it. And I think that's so admirable because you're always at the forefront of it, but you're not getting yourself in trouble by running too fast.
Well, there's also another element when companies get involved with social media is the employees and understanding how the employees fit in. It's really, really critical. And when we do a branding, what every new employee here goes through branding. I teach it. And part of that is talking about social media,
Mhm.
because, and we don't require employees to identify where they work. But we do ask if they're going to have engaged in any kind of like resharing our posts
Mhm.
or anything that would identify them to that worked for us, that we ask that they put in their profile that this is their own page, this is their views are their own, so that there's no confusion if they happen to say something that maybe somebody else sees and doesn't agree with.
Sure.
When they're sending anything out that mentions tropical, we ask that they actually just share content that we ourselves post, not to
Mm.
create their own, because our employees and specifically our content strategist has gone through the training of what to do and what not to do. And anything that contains what we call trigger terms, which would be
Mhm.
something compliance would need to look at, we have compliance look at it before we post anything. We have a whole project management software that basically goes to compliance when we want to schedule a post about anything that might have a trigger term. And
Mhm.
we get their okay or whatever wording we need to add in. And then we share it with the employees to say, hey, if you want to share this on LinkedIn or wherever, this is where the post is. Please feel free to share. And that's what we've asked our employees to do. Anybody who goes off script like that, we have a little conversation with them on the side. Because honestly, especially in terms of what employees are most likely to go rogue, they're going to be either business or mortgage.
Right.
Those are the two. Mortgage loan officers or business loan officers are the ones that are most likely to go rogue. I found that even when I worked for the mortgage company years ago. So they're the ones we really do have to talk about because they also have some of the most risk involved.
They do. They
Right.
do.
Even knowing that NMLS number, which has to be attached to everything that they do. Even the pens that they want to give out with their own name, it has to have that number on it. So they know that, but then for some reason they sort of get lost when they do social media. They forget that the same rules apply. So we have that conversation with them, with all the new employees that start wherever, whatever department they're in. But we want our employees to be proud of where they work. We want our employees to be proud of what we do, because it's not all just selling financial services. We do a lot with the community. We do a lot of different kinds of charity walks and other kinds of scholarships and giving money out to help our community. And we want our employees to be proud of that and be able to share that. So when we tell them, hey, the easiest way to do that is basically like our page and then just share our content across your own pages. And that's what a lot of our employees end up doing.
Yeah, and it's actually what you're talking about now was the biggest trend over the last year in social media compliance for financial institutions, which is two things. One, our employees want to be advocates about us. They want to post things, they want to share things, and we want to encourage them to be advocates because they're a part of our family, and we want to spread that to their community. But what some people don't know is that when someone is sharing something online, they could potentially be seen as a spokesperson of the credit union, and the same laws and regulations that would apply to the marketing department or the credit union as a whole could apply equally to John Q. employee, Jane Q. mortgage loan officer. And so we have what we call like employee advocacy guidelines saying, hey, you want to post nice things about the credit union online? Awesome. But here's how you do it to comply with truth in advertising laws. And the newest trend in terms of loan officers is what we call having line of business guidelines, meaning if you are in the mortgage line of business and you want to use your LinkedIn page to be able to promote the credit union and services and connect with people on behalf of the credit union, awesome. But you got to follow these guidelines. You got to take the right type of training like you have going through branding training. And that, I think, is such a good way to meet people in the middle, because you're not saying, no, don't use your social media, but it's if you use your social media, awesome. Then you got to follow these rules to make sure we're all doing it in the best possible way. So
yeah, and we have our content strategists work directly with our mortgage loan officer team because they want to get certain messages out. So they work with her to tell her what they want to get out, and then she writes the content, gets it approved, and then again the credit union shares it, and then they're able to amplify that message. So she's working in hand in hand with them. It's not just two departments sort of going against each other. And what you just said too is part of our employee handbook. We have a whole section and a policy about social media and how it applies to the credit union and our employees.
and having that approach is the best way to go about doing this. Some people think that usually marketing and compliance is like the Thunderdome. Two departments enter, only one department leaves, right? And then sometimes they'll call a social media lawyer in and they're both like, well, I want to be able to market, but there are new laws out there. There's not clear guidance. And what sometimes we just don't see yet, because we always see things through our own perspective, is it's not an either or situation. And sometimes it's, hey, how do we do what we want to do, but also follow the rules so that we can do this thing together? And when we're not looking at this from an antagonistic point of view, but instead looking at this from a team point of view, now we can both spot the risks and opportunities together and figure out a way to accomplish it. Like you figured it out by having the content strategist help to put the content together that these line of business employees want to use. Then they can use social media to accomplish their goals. The credit union is safe. Members and prospective members learn about the different ways that you're helping people. Everyone's happy, and we're having this big virtual hug on social media, just spreading love. And
Yes.
and that's what this podcast and this friendship has been all about. Over our number of years together, I've always loved interacting together. You are so fun, and I could continue talking to you for hours. But I know someone's got to get back to work today, and it's not me, it's you, because I see you. So I want to know two things. First, if people want to know about all the wonderful ways that Tropical Financial is helping people, where could they go online and find more about the products and services and things that you offer on your website?
Yeah, you could go to tropicalfcu.com. That stands for Tropical Financial Credit Union. So tropicalfcu.com. Or if you're really interested in that content and the education, we have a microsite set up called getbeyondmoney.com. You can even take a savings quiz to see how much money you could save by moving bank loans over to a credit union.
Amazing. So it's either tropicalfcu.com or getbeyondmoney.com. And
Right.
as people are saying, you know what, I want to visit the website, but I also want to follow along with all the cool podcast guests and the cool content that you're creating, where could people find Tropical Financial and the Get Beyond Money podcast on social media?
The podcast itself, actually, there's a link on getbeyondmoney.com strictly to heretofore to the podcast, because obviously you can get it on Apple and Spotify, all those different channels.
Mm-hmm.
And also on tropicalfcu.com, there's a whole section on financial wellness, and there where you can get our blogs, buying guides, all kinds of information on there. And then all of our social media is pretty much Tropical FCU. So anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, Tropical FCU.
Perfect. So if you want to follow along, just like I've been following on, let's do it together. Find Tropical FCU on your favorite social media platforms. And while you're there, you know what? Why not go ahead and follow the social media law firm as well? Because you're hearing this podcast, you're loving it. But I want to post some fun video clips of our episode for today. So of course you could see more of Amy. So you could find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at the Social Media Law Firm. And you know what? If you liked what you heard today, and maybe you might want to hear from our friends Kara and Zoe, because maybe we'll have them on the podcast as well to talk about what they're doing with the Get Beyond Money podcast.
Actually, I have to tell you, Ethan, there's a change.
Ooh, tell
There's
me.
a change in that Zoe is moving, I believe, to Texas. So there's still some podcasts out there that we have not aired yet with her, but you're going to start hearing more from Nicole. So you'll hear from Kara and Nicole is our new content strategist. So she's the one who you're going to hear more and more from on the podcast.
Perfect. So listen out there, listeners, you have two homework assignments. Not only are you going to have to subscribe to the Get Beyond Money podcast, so you can now hear from Kara and Nicole moving forward, but also, just go ahead and subscribe to the Social Media Lawcast as well if you haven't already, so you could just fill up your entire day with fun, interesting content. And the last thing I want you to do for extra credit, go online, leave a review for today's podcast, give Amy the 5 stars that she has deserved. Please, please, please. If when you want to leave constructive feedback for Ethan, just slide it into our DMs, but go ahead. Amy deserved the 5-star because you are not only a 5-star credit union rock star, but you're also a 5-star friend. And I'm so glad that we had the chance to do this together. And I can't wait to see you again in person sometime soon. And P.S.
I hope so.
Go Spartans.
Go green, go white. Amen.
Thanks so much, Amy. See you soon.
Thanks, Ethan.